Weekly Intelligence Briefings, number 27. Many keen observers of the Kenyan political scene are convinced that the fallout between the president and his deputy has reached breaking point. This becomes much clearer when you get a glimpse of what has been happening behind the scenes. And to be able to fully understand and appreciate the contents of these intelligence briefings, you'll need to step back emotionally, because everybody has got a favorite side. Everybody is supporting one of the two sides in the rapidly widening political divide. There are very few people who are neutral. And so I emphasize, to fully grasp this one, you'll need to step back. It is only when you do that that you'll understand why each side feels very betrayed. We now know that by mid-2016, the president and his deputy were hardly on talking terms. Although during public functions and in public, both put up an Oscar-winning award, acting performance. We also now know that they had fallen out much earlier, sometime in 2015. But by mid-2016, that relationship was at its worst. Now, at around this time, the deep state made a decision to rig the 2017 presidential elections in favor of the incumbent. Intelligence reports and assessment were clear that there was no way the incumbent was going to win a presidential election, a free and fair presidential election. This was not the first time that a presidential election was going to be fiddled with. It had happened many times before, since the reintroduction of multi-party politics into Kenya. But those close to the president knew that they were dealing with an opposition filled with very experienced politicians. Indeed, some of them were more experienced than those leading the government and the Jubilee Party or coalition at that time. And naturally, they still feared the election mess of only two elections before, that of 2007, where the fiddling of a presidential election had resulted in the deaths of very many Kenyans. And therefore, a very elaborate and a very costly plan was put in place. Indeed, the most complex and the most detailed plan to steal an election in the history of the country. But by early 2017, it became very clear that for the plan to work, or to have a chance of working, it required a person much more ruthless, at the highest levels of directing it. Now, at around this time, Deputy President William Samoei Ruto had become a very rare visitor to State House. In fact, those with the memory of an elephant will remember that he had even disappeared from public functions for more than 2 weeks. And all kinds of rumors were flying around. The deputy president was reached through proxies. And this culminated in a very fascinating meeting at Dagoretti Corner, Nairobi. Now, I covered that Nyamachoma session meeting in Kumekucha. And while I sensed it was very important, I had no idea what it was all about. At the time, the main agenda of that meeting was to get the deputy president to be the point man at the highest level in that deep state operation to rig the 2017 presidential elections. There were several Jubilee people at that meeting, but the two main people sent to speak to the deputy president over a Nyamachoma session at a Dagoretti Corner butchery were Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja and Gatundu South legislator Moses Kuria. Fast forward to the events that took place after 1st September 2017. Now, that is the date when the Supreme Court nullified the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta for a second term. Now, impeccable sources indicate that they have heard those close to the deputy president saying that at that point, the president himself had given up. He was sure that a second term was not going to happen. And even as he was persuaded by those close to him, the president remained very reluctant and very doubtful, as to whether this thing was really going to work. And there's some very fascinating evidence, concerning this, or to prove this. Somebody was sent to see a Zimbabwean prophet. And we had that video on our public channel. I've put a link on the top right-hand corner of your screen. You can go and take it in. Bottom line, the person who held everything together through this very trying period was Deputy President William Samoei Ruto. Now, this is where the bitterness of the DP Ruto camp comes in. Ruto played a major role, indeed the most important role, in getting President Uhuru Kenyatta elected in 2013. Now, once again in 2017, he did the same thing. And now you can understand why the deputy president feels so betrayed. Now, let's jump to the other side of the political divide. The reason why the president fell out with his deputy was because of reckless corruption on the side of the deputy president. With an emphasis on the word reckless. Because all politicians are corrupt. And to add insult to injury, the current problems the president is having in his own backyard in the Mount Kenya region is happening mainly because of economic hardships on the ground. And the major contributing factor to those economic hardships, by far, is the deputy president's reckless corruption during the first term of the presidency. In fact, very early during the Uhuru Kenyatta presidency. And so, naturally, the president feels very betrayed by his deputy president. Now you'll understand me totally when I tell you that the thinly veiled threats by sacked agricultural CS Mwangi Kiunjuri were really the deputy president threatening the president of Kenya. It was really the deputy president saying through Mwangi Kiunjuri that he has a lot to say. A lot of negative things to reveal. And you can also understand when somebody says that this government hangs by a thread. I look forward to sharing the next weekly intelligence briefings with you.